What's up guys, this is Qazi. Welcome to probably the most exciting video on this channel, and let me explain why. When you're working in the real world as a colorist, you're given inspirations. You're gonna be asked to do a Revenant look, a Fight Club look, and I'm not gonna jump right into the tutorial section. I'm gonna break it down and take you through step by step what you need to know when you're given an inspiration and how you can have a dialogue with your client to have clear expectations. You can educate your client on what is and isn't possible. That being said, if you want to take your color grading game to the next level, then you have to click on the link in the description below. I have a 1 hour long intense color grading training for you and it's free. Check it out, link is in the description. Guys, hit the thumbs up if you're enjoying the content, subscribe to my channel for more awesomeness, and make sure to follow me on Instagram. I have a huge community there and I would love for you to be a part of it. And on that note, let's roll the intro. I just want to take a moment to analyze this shot and take you through a few things. That way, when you're dealing with a client who brings you an inspiration such as this shot, you can give them a realistic expectation. You can just look at it and break it down for them and then show them what we have to work with and how far we can push the image, what we can and can't do. So if I look at this image, I can see that there's this light, a kicker that's coming from the side, which is this warm light. So this is obviously on a different color temperature than that light right there, or the lights in the back, right? And that's happening on set. That's not something that we're creating in post. Then you look at his key light, which is overhead and is giving him this like raccoon eyes right here, which fits the profile for this specific scene and the kind of character we're dealing with. So there's another source that's coming from that side, which is this cyan light that's filling up this entire frame. So guys, most of the time in Hollywood, they're creating those looks on set, and then you're bringing that into Resolve just to accentuate it and take it a step further. Whereas now, if we go to my image and we look at this shot that we're working with, we can obviously see that there is only daylight that's coming in, and then there's more light bounced back into her face through probably a bounce disc, which is the circle that we see in her eye. So besides that, we do not have 3 different color temperatures going on to give us this look. So we're gonna have to cheat it by isolating her skin and then, create that cyan look in the back without affecting the skin and without affecting, certain parts of her dress. And I'm gonna pop open my scopes so we can analyze what's happening in this frame. So the scopes are pretty good to kind of give you a general sense of where everything lives. If we look at our parade, just look at the reds. They're almost gone. They're so compressed. And then look how dominant the green is. And then blue is somewhere in the middle, right? And then you move over to our waveform, the same story will continue. Look at how much cyan is in there in the entire image. We see that. And then the red is just almost gone. If we look at our vector scope, just look at this. So much cyan is so saturated in that channel. And we know now what we need to do, where we need to get our image to look exactly like our intention. And if we look at our histogram, it's going to be the same exact thing. Look at the green, look at the red, look at the blue, and then look at the red in the shadow area, how it's just gone. If you are not working with a calibrated screen and you can't really trust what you're seeing, scopes will tell you that story. Scopes will demystify that element of color grading, where you will know exactly where everything is if you see this. And even when you're grading your image, as long as you're getting in this ballpark, then you know that you're nailing it regardless of whether your monitor is calibrated or not. So those are certain things that you need to keep in mind. And now that we have that out of the way, we can just get to work. So the way we're going to attack this is that I'm going to build my node tree structure and then take you through what's happening here. We're going to label everything, and that's going to give you a good understanding of how I build my grades. I would say use this as a building block and then find your own style and then modify your node tree structure accordingly. But what you're about to see is really going to help you understand, if you have a proper node tree structure per shot, how easy it can make your life over time when you're dealing with 100, 200, 500, 1,000 shots, whatever you got when you're working on a project. Another thing that's going to happen is that I'm going to be using my control surface. So a lot of the times my mouse might be sitting right here, but then things are moving here. So don't worry, I'm going to make all my windows bigger when I'm working on a specific window. And on top of it, I'm going to commentate what I'm doing. So you guys are going to see exactly what's happening. I'm going to have some annotations going on, some arrows, things like that. So it's not going to be confusing. I'm just giving you a heads up. So let's get started. So my first node is always reserved for noise reduction. So I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave it as is. Then I'm going to create another node and I'm going to pull this down. And I'm going to explain everything as I go. So my node tree, the way I set it up is in rows, and the top row is, just one node, which is noise reduction. Then the second row is for my primaries usually. And then this is where I'm going to have all my primary adjustments, and we're not going to be using any LUTs. So we're going to be just doing everything using our primaries wheels right here. And then the next node is going to be where we're going to start creating a look. So for this one, I'm going to bring this down right here. And for this particular one, since this wasn't lit to where we want to be, I'm going to be using layer nodes. And when we get into it, I'm going to explain to you how to properly use them. But right now, I'm just going to create a few. So this is going to be for skin. This is going to be our background. And then this is going to be our dress. So right now, I'm going to leave it at 3. And if we need to add more, we will add more. And then I'm going to click right here and create another node. This node is going to be my look adjustment. So the look that we're going to create here, this is going to get us a little bit closer to where we want to be, sort of like a global adjustment for our look. So we're going to create that here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you guys can see what's going on. I'm going to create another node, and then this one, I'm going to pull it down. So this is going to be my vignette. So this is where we're going to pull her out, and then I'm going to create an outside node. So the outside node is going to be whatever I do to her here, it's going to select everything outside of that. And then after that, we're going to create another node. And then this is where we're going to do sharpening. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So that's where we're going to be doing all our sharpening done here. And then we're going to create one more where I'm going to drop in our film grain just to give it that film look. And then the last one is going to be our global adjustment. And that's where we're going to make our final micro adjustments just to bring everything home. So this is the node structure. Now I'm going to go ahead and name it so you guys can just follow along. And then when you create your own node tree structure, it's going to help you with that as well. So I went into my keyboard and customized that key for naming my layers. You can set to whatever, but mine is set to tab. So now I'm going to call this NR, which is noise reduction. And then the second one is going to be primaries. And I'm just going to type in primaries. And then this is going to be our background. And I'm going to give it some gap. And then this is going to be our skin. And I'm going to pull this down. And then this is going to be our dress. And right here is going to be our look adjustment. And I'm going to leave it like that. And then this is our vignette. And this guy is going to be our outside of the vignette. This one is sharpen. And then this right here is our grain. That's our film grain. And then this right here is going to be our global adjustment. So this is the node tree. If we have to add nodes to it, no big deal, we will add them. But this is just basically the foundation. This is what we're going to use to as a starting off point. The best thing about this is that once you get used to this, and then when you're making some adjustments and the client comes in and says, hey, I don't like this green, can we try this, can you try that? You will know exactly where to go and what to do to make those changes. If you are just somebody who just keeps hitting new node, and make all these changes, then it could be really difficult when you have to go back and trace it back. Like, it might be impossible. So that's why I have my structure set up this way. So let's get going. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to start off with the contrast. So what I usually do is, instead of using an image wipe to get my colors in, I use split screen. And then in the split screen, you're going to click right here. You're going to select selected still images. And basically then it's going to go ahead and pick whatever image you have selected here, and it's going to pop it open. First thing I want to do is always start with the contrast. And in this case, I'm going to use contrast and pivot to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and start dialing that in. And that's what's happening, right? So like I told you, I'm going to be using my panel, but just kind of keep an eye on what's happening there. So my contrast somewhere around here, something like that. And that's fine for now. And now what I want to do is grab my log wheels, and I'm going to come into my long range and I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to bring that down to around 2-ish because I want to just select the bottom of my shadows to be affected right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my shadows right here and just bring that down. So I'm trying to bring that down to kind of match the black point that we have over here. Okay, so that is looking fine. And now don't freak out with the color temperature because this is so red. And let's just pull up our scopes right now. And I'm going to leave my scopes right here so you guys can see what's going on. So obviously our reds are really lifted, as you can see right here compared to where the reds are there. And that's okay because this is our primary adjustment. Then I'm going to go ahead and give it some saturation. So let's go ahead and give it some saturation. And the reason why we want to give it saturation is so it can help us when we're pulling keys. Okay, so that's going to help out quite a bit. And now I'm looking at this and, you know, the red is even, you know, farther apart now than where it was before. So let's balance this image out. And the best way to do that in this particular situation would be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go into my offset, and I just want to grab my red and I want to pull it down because look at this, right? Like, so the green and the blue is down here and then the red is just lifted. All of it is just lifted. So in order to adjust that, I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to grab my red. I'm going to pull it down a little bit. I'm going to keep it somewhere around here, and you can already see how much of a difference it made. So I'm going to do before and after, before and after. So it's making a pretty big difference. This is looking pretty good. The saturation is looking pretty good. Now we're at a point where we can pull a pretty good key. The contrast is looking pretty decent compared to what we got going on over here. And we can attest to that by looking at the image right here. So everything in our image right here is sitting around here somewhere. And that's exactly what's going on in our image as well. But we have to pull it down even more eventually. But for our primary adjustment, I think we've come a long way. This is looking pretty good. Now what I want to do is I want to go into my skin. One thing that you need to understand about layers, the way the layers work in Resolve is the opposite of how layers work in After Effects or Premiere Pro or Final Cut 10, whatever have you. What I mean by that is any node that comes later is going to take precedent to the prior one. So this node is going to have a priority over 3, and then 6 is going to have priority over 5. And it will make a lot more sense in 1 second. So now I'm going to get rid of my split screen view. I'm going to go into right here, my qualifier. And then we're going to go ahead and pick her skin right here. Now it's done a pretty good job, but you can see there's a lot of noise, and this gunky stuff is happening because there is actually a lot of noise in the image. Okay. And what I can do, first of all, is try to minimize it as much as possible. So we can do some of this. And then we'll see what else we can do to control it. And then we can blur it out quite a bit. Don't ever be shy with blurring out the keys, like go ham. And now what we can see is that there's a lot of noise right here. So in order to reduce that, first of all, let's uncheck that. And then let's go into our noise reduction and do this. And this is the sauce right here. And then uncheck this, break the link right here, and just affect the chroma. And right here. Now, if I take you up close and show you what's happening here compared to before and after, you can see how much of her skin and the entire image we're cleaning up without really sacrificing the detail. Resolve's noise reduction is insane. It's so good. So now if I go back right here and pop this guy open, you're going to see that it's a lot cleaner. The way to get better at qualifier is to practice. You really have to get in there, understand all the parameters, and then play around with them until you have a deeper understanding of how each tool reacts. This looks pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and see how good our key is. So I'm gonna go back to our inspiration and start dialing in the colors. So this is where we want to get to, and I'm going to get there by using my primaries. Okay, so I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to use my primaries to get right there and just watch what's happening right here. So as we can see that the key is pretty freaking good. Let's play it back. I mean, just look at this. Without the key, it would be like this. With the key, it's like this. So it's holding pretty freaking well. But obviously, we're not going to leave it like that. We have to blend it in and find the right balance. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this green. There's way too much green. So in order to address that, I'm going to go into my curves and I'm going to go into my hue versus saturation right here. And I'm going to select my green. I'm going to pull it down. So that's taking care of it a little bit. I'm looking at this, right? So this is my green point. My green is going to be around here, not more than that. So this is not bad. Now what I want to do is go under hue versus hue, grab my green, raise it up a little bit, raise it down to turn it into a little bit of a cyan situation like that's going on over here. Okay. So now my greens are not looking too bad. One thing that I'm noticing is that there's a little bit more saturation over here in the background than we have here. So let's go ahead and add some saturation, just global saturation right here. And now if I'm looking at the colors like right here, like we're bringing a lot of those in. Now, in this case, even our highlights, we don't have to make these white points white purely because look at what's happening. These points are not necessarily white. And another thing that I'm noticing is that you might say, hey, there's some cyan seeping into her eyes. But the thing is, look at how much cyan is in his eyes right here. So that's what's helping blend the entire thing together. So we don't have to really worry about that too much. I'm actually pretty happy with where the colors are right now. Now I want to go into my skin and I want to blend it in. And the best way to do that is right here. So this is where, think of it as like opacity if you're coming from like the Adobe ecosystem. So right here in your key output, we're going to control how much we want to blend this in. So right now it's at 100%. That's the strength. I'm going to bring it down to kind of like blend the two together a little bit, right? And then what I want to do is just like how there's more magenta in his skin right here, I want to add some more magenta in the highlights of her skin. So I'm going to do that by going into my log wheels right here, And then I'm going to grab my midtone right here and I'm going to raise it up to magenta. And that should add a little bit of it. And then I'm also going to take my highlights and do the same thing. So that's definitely adding some of that. And that's looking pretty good. I mean, look at guys. Before, if we would have just let our image, you know, if we wouldn't have selected the skin, would have been like this. By selecting our skin, we're right here, which is pretty freaking good. Another thing that we can try is try our saturation, bring it down a little bit. And that will also help kind of blend it in. And that's not bad at all. I'm also going to go in my primaries wheels and I'm going to grab my gain and I'm going to take it toward that magenta just a little bit. Not too much. So this is looking pretty freaking good. I'm happy with that. Now let's go into our dress. And like I said, whatever comes later takes precedent over the node prior. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my split screen again. And now I want to go back into my qualifier. And what I'm looking for is I'm going to select my picker. And then what I'm looking for is my red. So I'm going to go in here, select qualifier, and then I'm going to go ahead and just pick all of this red. And let's go in here and see how good of a job it did. It did a really good job. I'm going to widen it up a little bit just to grab everything. And then I'm going to blur it out quite a bit. And what that's going to do is it's going to preserve my red. So now my red is kept pristine how I want it. And again, if the eyes are too much for you guys, first of all, the eyes are not too much because look at so much cyan seeping through his eyes. So I'm leaving my eyes as is. But for those who want to critique and say like, you know, this is too much for us, you guys can easily go in here, create a window around her face, and then mask it out. Basically invert it. So then the eyes are going to be pure white. But because I'm going for this and that's my inspiration, I'm going to stay true to that. And I'm going to leave it as is for this one. Let's go back to our split screen mode and see how close we are. This is looking really freaking good, guys. Come on. Like, look at this right here. These highlights to like how our highlights are looking. Like, look at all the other colors. We are there. This is already, we've come a long freaking way. If I just take my look nodes and if I just turn them off and then turn them on, we're looking really good. So I'm in my look adjustment node. I'm going to play around with this. And what I do is I just rotate it around and see if there's something that I can do to get in the ballpark even faster and get even closer to where I want to be. So I feel like this might be doing it. Let me just sit on it for 1 second. I think I like what it does to her skin. I also like how it takes out the green bias that's in the image before the look adjustment. And I think the skin gets closer to what I wanted the skin to look like. And then the background and the shadows get deeper on that bluer side. I don't know though. I mean, it might be a bit much. Let's just keep moving it around. Hold on. Let me make it a little bit bigger and then look at it. All right, I personally think it's definitely a welcome change. So I'm going to leave it in. And that's what I mean. That's what the look adjustment is for. It, you know, really quickly can put you in the ballpark. So I love it for that reason. Now for vignette, let's get rid of this split screen again. Let's go back to our shot. I'm going to make it smaller. And for vignette, basically, this is what we're going for. So let's analyze this real quick and just look at what's happening. Look at how harsh the vignette is, like how we get to see him and then everything kind of fades away and fades to black almost. So it's pretty heavy. Like the vignette that's happening here is pretty heavy. So that's what we're going to go for. And it's pretty simple. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create a circle and I'm going to make it kind of big, oval, and then give it a shape. Maybe not that much, something like that. And then I'm going to soften it up quite a bit. And then what I want to do is I want to go in here and I'm going to click on editable splines and I'm going to click right here up top and just raise it just a tiny bit, not too much. Okay. Just like something like that. That's it. It just pops it a little bit, nothing too crazy. And now the outside is going to be opposite of that. And now I want to go click on these three dots and uncheck editable splines. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and bring back my image, make it full screen so you guys can see better. And now I'm going to just grab it from the middle and I'm going to pull it down. Now I'm going for this extreme thing because that's what's happening here, okay? And if that's the inspiration, then you got to go all in. That's the thing. Like you can't half-heartedly go in to it. Like you just have to go all the way in. And this is selling it to me. I don't think we need to track anything because she's in the center. So she's not really moving. So this works, okay? I'm going to go into my sharpening and I'm going to go right in here on this guy and I'm going to pull it down to 47. That's the sauce. That just gives it enough sharpness without making it look tacky. Okay. If I turn it on and off, you can just see what's happening with her eyes. And it's a very intelligent system that does a wonderful job. Then I'm going to go into my film grain. I'm going to come up here and this is one of Resolve's own effects. And I'm going to use that. I'm going to go to 35mm 400T. And then I'm going to raise the grain strength quite a bit. And if you look at it, it just basically, like look at right here. It's just adding enough to give it that film texture that's just highly appreciated. And I absolutely love it. Now the global adjustment is always there if we want to mess with it. We don't ever have to mess with it if we don't want to. But that's basically a node sitting there if a producer goes, okay, I like it, but can we try this? Can we try that? Then you don't have to go in here and make adjustments. You can just do it in your global adjustment. One thing that we can do, to be honest with you, in our global adjustment is bring the saturation down. Let's just say if we just think that, okay, it's a bit much, we can do a couple of things. I want to show you this, sat versus sat. So most of the meat sits right here, right? And I want to pull saturation from that, but I want to leave the saturation in my shadows and my highlights. I can just come up here in the middle and I can pull this down and just look what's happening. I can pull it back up. I can leave it somewhere around here and let's look at it. We were right here. Now we're right here. I can also go to my highlights too and say, let's bring that down a little bit too. And then let's keep bringing this down. So that's going to come down to your preference. I actually do not mind pulling some saturation because I feel like it just makes everything deeper and adds a bit more film quality to it. So I'm going to leave it there. And that's what my point was with the global adjustment. It's such a great tool that's sitting right there that you can use to like dial in a few things really quickly. So one last thing that I think I want to change is how much saturated her skin is compared to our inspiration. So I'm going to go under my skin and then I'm going to go into my global saturation. I'm going to pull it down and then I'm going to bring it up somewhere around here. And another thing I want to do is I'm going to go into my primaries wheels and I'm going to just add some warmth. Like I'm going to take it toward like yellow, just add some of that. and then pull some more saturation out. So somewhere around here. Now what I want to do is just get rid of our split screen and then make this bigger and see how that looks. And I think I am more comfortable with that than where it was before. So let's just turn all of these off and then go one by one and see how far we've come. So this is our primary adjustment. Then we went into our skin, selected that. Then we created our background. After that, we pulled out our dress. And then look adjustment is something that I feel like just did a tremendous amount of job, bringing everything close to this ballpark. And then we created a vignette, just pop her out a little bit. And then we just brought everything else down around her, added sharpening and film grain to really give it that character. And then in our global adjustment, we just brought the overall saturation down a little bit just to kind of make all the colors deeper. And I feel like that looks absolutely fantastic. Let's check out the final look in full screen. I hope you guys had a blast. Make sure to drop a comment below. Let me know which look you want me to do next. I have some ideas, and this inspiration series is going to continue, but I would love to hear from you guys. And for this particular tutorial, I would highly recommend going back a couple of times and just rewatching it and letting it come to you and just really absorb the content that's here. And guys, on that note, if you want to take your color grading game to the next level, which I highly recommend you should, make sure to check the link in the description below. It's a 1 hour long training that's going to take you from not knowing anything about Resolve all the way to grading your first professional project. Hit the thumbs up if you're enjoying the content, subscribe to my channel for more awesomeness, and I will see you guys in the next video.